Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I know it's a little bit after lunch, so we're going to do our best to keep you entertained and get you learning about some interesting things regarding DPPs. My name is Erwin Voloder. I'm the Director of Research and Strategy here at Blockchain for Europe, joined here by colleagues from industry and from the policymaking circles. DPPs are a really interesting use case. They, in some ways, are regulated locally but impactful globally. And there's a lot more to them than just batteries and eco-design, which we will definitely get into. So what I'd like to do now is open it to our panelists here to do a little tour de table, introduce themselves, and then we can dive into the questions.
So hello everyone, I'm Danika, the General Counsel of the Aura Blockchain Consortium. So Aura is a non-profit organization founded by the luxury industry for the luxury industry. And really the objective is to make blockchain technology easy and accessible for the luxury industry. And we offer a DPP solution to enhance transparency, traceability, and obviously, compliance with the upcoming regulations. So very happy to discuss with all of you today. Already this morning, there were some good hints of the use of blockchain outside of financials, so very happy to discuss that with my colleagues today.
Hello everyone, my name is Asgeir Oskarsson, but as Thomas already said, it's Aus, it's easier, Icelandic names. I'm the Managing Director of the BSV Association. We're a Swiss-based non-profit, global advocate for the BSV blockchain. We focus on developers, on education and awareness around blockchain, but also just trying to make it as easy for anyone to build on blockchain. And one of our focus areas is the supply chain industry, which is why I'm very happy to be here talking about DPPs. Hope to be enlightening everyone a little bit. So thanks for having us.
Good afternoon, I'm Pierre Marro. I work for DG CNECT. DG CNECT is a department of the Commission in charge of most of digital files, but not all of them. And I'm working in a unit called Future Internet, but we have, let's say, a sector which is about supporting or making the best with decentralized technology and blockchain. And today, even if I'm not the leader for this file, I will try to give some input or information about how we progress for the regulatory aspect and policy aspect for the digital product passport.
Thank you. Maybe Pierre, we'll start with you. So from the perspective of digital and data policy, how is the Commission looking at or thinking about DPPs at a high level, and what principles matter most as this becomes a European and cross-border infrastructure?
So maybe to give you a small reminder, I mean, the digital product passport was introduced as part of the green agenda within the previous Commission mandate with the objective to support circular economy. And this initiative was subject to a dedicated regulation, which is called the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation. And this is where the digital product passport was introduced. And in doing so, there was also the willingness to link with maybe previous initiative which implement something similar to the digital product passport. And this is the case, for instance, for a battery. We have then had a different initiative which have been taken by the Commission to define, in addition to this legal framework, also a methodology and approach to work with all the different stakeholders and to progress towards the implementation of the digital product passport. So in terms of principles, there is nothing really new within this approach. I mean, first is, of course, about digitalization. We are not proposing something for the digital product passport that should continue to be paper-based. So digitalization is one of the principles. Then is, of course, technology neutrality. I mean, we are here to discuss about blockchain, but the regulation has not been designed for a specific technology to be used, but more to be technological neutral. Then about openness, in particular to rely on open standards. And that's something which is let's say, at the DNA of most of the the regulation at European level to avoid any vendor locking or any kind of approach of this like it. Then, of course, simplification. We want also those new regulation not to be just considered as a burden for the practitioner, for the industry, for the customer, but more something that can help them. And finally, I would say that one of the other principles is to have a cross-border aspect, a cross-sector application of the DPP, and this is something which is at the core of our approach.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And Az, maybe turning to you from a different perspective. So, how important is blockchain for DPPs at the protocol level, and kind of can you give us a little bit more information on what the BSV ecosystem is doing in this regard, and kind of how they're using the tech to build out these products and what they're building them for?
Fantastic, yes. So as Pierre said, the law itself does not require DPPs to be built on blockchain, but to be honest, it is the perfect infrastructure layer for it. And there's variable aspects that you need to consider. It's not just the protocol layer, by the way, it's also you need to consider, it's basically what Frederick told earlier, what you have on top of it, the middle layer on top. But I'll go into the protocol and explain BSV a bit as well. So from a protocol perspective, a blockchain, the beauty of it, if it's immutable, it's verifiable, right? And then there's different types of blockchain you can use. You could think of permission blockchains where you can decide who gets to participate. Use public blockchains where actually you can build in certain levels of privacy to get your selective disclosure. You don't need to share everything with everyone, even if it's on a public blockchain, right? So what needs to be done then for digital product passport is, one, it's a regulatory drive with batteries going into textile and electronic. The amount of products that are going to be requiring a digital product passport is unfathomable. It's into the millions, if not billions, right? And these products have a life cycle that is not just a month. No, it's actually, hopefully a luxury product. If I buy a product from Louis Vuitton, I would like it to be with 50 years life cycle, right? So you need a massive amount of data. And that's essentially what we've been doing at the BSV Association, is developing the next generation node software which enables this massive scale. Last year we did tests on our node software, then it can go into 1.1 million transactions per second due to unlimited block sizes. And that's the scale that you need to support these things, because then you can start building on top of it, and then you have this single source of truth. So one thing is the protocol itself is the ledger, but a ledger is just a ledger. And as what Frederick said earlier, the key is identity. These are products. This is essentially a digital twin of a physical product, be it a battery, be it a TV, be it a cow. It's a digital twin, so it needs to have this identity baked in, and that's the layer on top. So what we've been doing with our ecosystem and also with businesses is there's companies in the ecosystem that already have them rolled out. Luxury goods is a perfect example because of the authenticity angle, right? And there's art, cigars, wine you can think of. But then you look at the food industry as well. We're working with a consortium around a farm to fork to trace, actually, to connect farmers directly to consumers. Because how do you know what you're eating? And just to go into that example, I was at a food industry last week in Abu Dhabi. I'm never eating chicken again if I don't know where it's coming from. So we need to make sure that this is, one, a regulatory drive, but also a consumer angle. So our role is to support the ecosystem, connecting with businesses, and also make it easier for businesses that want to explore blockchain as a technology to support them in pilot projects, building on that stack on top of the protocol, so to say.
Wonderful, thank you. And Danika, maybe turning to you now. So Aura's been one of the first and largest implementers of this at scale. And it's a very interesting part of the industry that you come from, which is obviously luxury, representing really large retailers and maisons. How is the value approach? What is the biggest value driver that you see for DPPs for consumers based on how it's being used with the products and services with the companies that you interact with?
Well, I think some of the value driver, first we heard this morning as well, it's not just compliance, so it's building connection with the customer. So you bring, from compliance really to connection to build a new relationship with your customer. So that's very important. The second is a trusted source of information, a trusted source for the origin. You want to know where your product is coming from. You want to have all the traceability information. So this trust is critical. So it also helps to build the brand equity, and that's very important in the luxury industry. Plus, you unlock a lot of the downstream event, I want to say, for the whole product life cycle, which enable so many new services and business circular model. So that's very, very important. So for me, building trust is key, and enabling downstream use case. You have also benefit for the customer in terms of repair, maintenance. So it's much more than just compliance. It's building the connection with your customer and the trust.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think to kind of echo some of the other points, I think it really is important, whether we're talking about farm to table, or we're talking about luxury bags, or we're talking about batteries, or whatever. I think it's this total spectrum approach that we have that's allowing us to use data in a way that we perhaps haven't been able to. The fidelity of data in these provenance chains. Pierre, I'd like to turn back to you. Given that you're in CNECT and not Grow, where do you see the broader digital governance issues maybe aligning with any sort of DPP rollout? Okay, so is it we're talking about is it the data sharing? Is it identifiers, governance, registries?
First, about the way this regulation is implemented, if your question is about who is in the lead, I mean, I would like to clarify that there is, it's DigiGrow, which is, I would say, the head, at the head of the DPP and its implementation, but it is really a cross-cutting policy action, which involve DG Connect, but many other DGs. In particular for climate, for environment, etc., etc. So here there is, it's not only something which is decided at the EC level through, let's say, Directorate Generals, but it's really also implemented in a process which onboard different stakeholders at different stage. So the way the regulatory framework is complemented is through a multi-annual working plan, and through this working plan you have different steps, which is to have this plan, then to decide to work on a specific product or family of product. Then the next step is to make a study and an impact assessment. Then if the outcome is positive in the sense that it is worthy to go further for the implementation, there is an eco-design forum, and all those different steps are open to different consultation, and that's opportunity for different stakeholders from the industry or consumer association or service providers to intervene and to have for their point of view to be taken into account. Now, the way we progress is that there are different, through the multi-annual working plan, there are different milestones which have been set up. I mean, at the end of this year, or more probably in the first quarter of next year, there will be a bunch of open standards that will be adopted by the CNECT. And this open standard, the draft were already subject to a public consultation organized during the last summer. Then there will be an effort which is also done in parallel in order to ensure that those standards can be also adopted at ISO, at international level, and therefore that all those standards become something which are as large as possible adopted by at the global level. It will remain, maybe I will come back to that, but it will remain a challenge to have a global harmonization about how we see the digital product passport to be implemented. But, and of course, our regulation in Europe define what is done within Europe. So either you are a manufacturer in Europe or a seller in Europe, or let's say an importer. In Europe, you are impacted by the regulation, but we cannot impose our regulation beyond our frontier. But in terms of then, through those different set of standards, we can address the different points that you have highlighted. So some concern the DPP system, which is more about the identifier, the protocol, the security, the interoperability, etc., etc. And then we have also in parallel work which is concerning the data themselves, so the passport itself and which data deserve to be put on the data on the DPP. And of course, it's not. I insist on that. That the purpose is not only to have a new digital items, but really for this data, for those data to be exploited, and at first to be exploited by the industry, also to be exploited by market authorities or custom authorities, and also to be exploited by the consumers that may need to have. Let's say to have more accurate information about the products that they use or the way they are built. And of course, what matters also is that in this process, all the initiative enable new business domain, new business models, to be exploited by the different players, in particular by the industry.
Okay. As Pierre touched on some different points there with regards to standardization, with regards to interoperability, also talking about protocols. Speaking of protocols, you know, there's a lot of developments in the industry now. Things are becoming much more modular, much more composable, and so we start talking about public permission versus public permissionless versus private permission, etc. How do you see these competing influences in terms of affecting or enabling the adoption of DPPs, like in terms of these different ledger constructs talking to each other?
Well, we're at a blockchain conference right now, so we're in a bubble of all knowing the language, and I think that's also one of the issues. We're always talking tech first. We're not talking business first. So permissioned versus permissionless, it's a business decision that they need to make based on their needs, right? So just keep it simple, stupid. Like, it's really a question of thinking business first and not tech first. So I have my opinion. I am happy to share it later, but I do, on this panel, I actually want to emphasize that the importance is on thinking what the value is. Why are you doing this? Are you doing this from a regulatory perspective? And then it's just a question of the identity with the metadata and making sure that you comply with regulations. Are you doing it for the end user to build a loyalty program, to create a secondary market, etc.? Or are you actually doing this to create transparency from a community perspective, like we see in this food association that we're partners of? So I think the question is valid, but it's only one of many questions to be answered when you're talking to businesses about this. At the end of the day, the traceability of a product is a need that either the regulator, the business itself, or the end user has, and you need to think from that perspective, and that's how you need to tackle it. So that will lead you to decisions whether you're going to use a permission blockchain or whether you're going to use a permissionless blockchain where you don't store all the data on-chain but only hashes on-chain, or you have on-chain and off-chain storage. That's a design principle that needs to be tackled by the business together with the experts. And I know we have loads of experts here in the room, but we are all talking to each other in this blockchain bubble, right? And I think if you would go to a business industry event, first of all, they just need to understand what a blockchain is. And in its essence, it's a ledger, right? It's an underlying infrastructure, and it just needs to work. And you need to make sure that the value comes to the business and the end user itself. So then you're talking about user experience. And I like what Frederick said earlier, like, you shouldn't even talk about blockchain. You shouldn't even call it a wallet. People are used to working with applications on their phone. You have an application in which you can do X, Y, Z, and it just happens to use blockchain. And once we start making that switch, that's where we're going to see real adoption, because I think the tech talk has been the one that has been impeding us, because it's just very complex to understand. And we need to be, as an industry, be better at explaining what blockchain is and what the value is from a business perspective. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Danika, maybe turning to you now. A lot of what luxury brands do is around storytelling and is around kind of building this very personal relationship with consumers. And then there's a huge secondary market element in play in many cases, right? Also with luxury watches and whatnot. Coming from this perspective, maybe what's one thing that regulators might not understand, or where a blind spot might be about how customers actually view or could view DPPs in the context of their consumer journey?
Yeah, so I think it's first what we said, DPP is not just compliance, it's much more than that. But it can, coming back to what, I mentioned before, for the customer is really having trust in the brand it purchased, making sure it's, it's authentic, it's a real one. So for that, the DPP is, a very good tool with, the product being also authenticated, recorded on the blockchain. So this is a very good guarantee. It's also for the brand, because you also need to consider all the actors. For the brand, it's the possibility to interact with the first purchaser, the first owner of the product, but also to continue the relationship later with the second or the third. And also for this customer, the second or the third, to benefit from repair, maintenance, which they could not have. So authentication is one element which is very important, and transparency, traceability, the whole story of the product. These, could be huge impact for the customer in the resale, but also to fight counterfeit. Because before the resale, the first big issue is counterfeit. And having the possibility to have this product recorded on the blockchain, being able to authentify your product, so you scan your bag or you scan whichever luxury product you have, and you can immediately, it's an instant confirmation. This is a real one, has a massive value for customers.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think maybe we turn to like an open round of questions now, and you mentioned something about global interoperability in one of your earlier interventions, Pierre. So maybe we turn to this now. I mean, we have different implementations of this that are going to be happening in different jurisdictions, in MENA, in LATAM, in APAC, etc. So what does like a global DPP fabric look like?
But actually, we don't have all the answer today, and it is one of the biggest challenges is how to make the way we conceive DPP in Europe something which is adopted at the global level. And there are indeed similar but different initiatives which are developed almost anywhere in the world, with in particular some countries or regions which contribute a lot to the supply chain of product. And at a given stage, we'll need to see how far we can, let's say, have a real interoperable solution, or maybe further integration, or other scenarios that are not yet defined. What I want to stress is that through the consultation, which are organized in particular through something which is called the Eco-Design Forum, there are already cooperation between European actors and other actors. For instance, I was told that yesterday there was a meeting with Japan representative in order to progress together towards. But there is still a lot of question mark, and we don't have yet the answer. And the answer can also come partially from the industry which is already a global industry. In Aura, you have different players or solution provider which are also present in different markets. Of course, what we expect is to avoid that what we deliver within Europe stay exclusively valid in Europe, because obviously the supply chain are going much beyond Europe. But we have not all the answer for that. Again, there are objectives to open consultation to other non-European players or non-European authorities. There are efforts to promote the European standard also at the ISO at international level. There are specific standards that concern interoperability, which can serve for further progress. But this is obviously one of the challenges of the DPP is to ensure this global harmonization is a long journey. But from the practitioner, we can also learn a lot. Because I would like to stress the fact that what is regulated is not the entire, let's say, effort which needs to be deployed by enterprise, for instance, to provide data for the DPP. Then all those players will remain free to ensure the way they want to collect those information through their own supply chain, etc., etc. So, unfortunately, I have no magic stick or magic answer for right now, but it is something that is going to be further developed as we progress. But for sure, if we are able to deliver according to the timeline which have been decided for the DPP within Europe, we will put Europe in a stronger position than if we go with a completely fragmented approach, and that's the line which is taken so far.
If anybody else wants to...
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, agree, of course, globally, there is not everything yet, but it's very encouraging to see that there is collaboration, there are discussions, because, yes, we can have, in terms of the standard apply, the more it's aligned, the better. What is good, from a European perspective, from an industry, we already see that the EU Commission is driving towards more simplification and using DPP as one of the key elements for all product information. So whether it's compliance information, is sustainability, circularity information, how can it be used also for customs? So these, for an industry perspective, will avoid duplication and additional complexity. So that's good, and globally, obviously, collaboration will be critical to avoid too many different, not on the content of the data, because that you can flex and add on your passport, but on the standards which are applied and how it can be interoperable.
So maybe to add to the global aspect, because I just find this case super fascinating, because it's about trust, right? It's about how this data, blockchain at the end of the day plays one role, but it's only, depends also the quality of the data that comes in. I just find this particular use case fascinating. I'm not sure if people are familiar with the Chateau Petrus, which is like the most expensive wine in the world. And apparently, in China, you can buy bottles of Chateau Petrus of years that it was never produced, right? So it's again a question of trust to the consumer, right? So I want to be able to assure that if I pay 3,000 to 4,000 euros for my bottle of wine, that it's real, that it hasn't been opened. And there are solutions for that as well. So yes, this is a local regulation, but at the end of the day, we're all talking global supply chain, global users that are using of this, and actually that's the user having value. And it needs to make sense, because there's also an Italian beer brand that is using blockchain. You can scan a QR code on the bottle, and you see in which province the wheat is from for the beer. That's more of a gimmick, because that's not really adding value to me. It's more like, oh, I can see that this beer is coming from A, B, or C. But it needs to add value. So, for example, the counterfeit and authenticity of the product passport is then absolutely fascinating. A great use case for blockchain.
Fantastic, and maybe another question: how do we get to strike the right balance between protecting commercially sensitive information and ensuring transparency, especially when we're talking about kind of the movement of goods and their accompanying digital twins in global supply chains?
I'm going to give people a pitch, because you're going to be talking about GDPR later, right? So I'm just going to go very small into that. But it's general best practice. Don't put any personal data, don't put any sensitive data on chain, right? There's off-chain storage for that. There's other tactics to do that. Yes, it's the question of balancing privacy with transparency. That comes back to the initial design question that you raised. And I think we need to look at what's the value. Like at the end of the day, if it's a supply chain where you have multiple suppliers needing access to the same shared set of data, what is it that they actually need to know, need to be aware of, and not? So it's a big balance. I'm worried that with a lot of regulation, that it's also an increased cost of compliance and then a cost for the consumer. I think here there's a good balance struck, but it hasn't been implemented yet, so we don't know yet. So let's see what the future brings. Yes.
No, that, it's to your point. We I think putting personal data or sensitive data on chain is not, necessarily something, we would recommend or do. And it's finding, the right balance, having the right people, having access to the right information. And that's also what you see, in the DPP regulations. So your customer or someone going in the shop will see a certain set of information. Then as a company to your client or customer who bought the product, you can enhance all your, storytelling, loyalty, and any other, personalization to this customer. So that's something else. Plus, obviously, you have the authorities. So whether, it's an enforcement, custom, will have access to different information. And it's important, coming back to your point, it's not a, technology or decision, it's a business also decision. What do you give access to whom? And you have so many tools you can differentiate, and that's a business call to decide.
I'd like to turn maybe more on the UI side, because you brought up something really interesting, as when you were talking about keep it simple, stupid. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with or maybe you've experienced the QR code fatigue during COVID, where literally everything became a QR code for everything. How do we kind of avoid that with DPPs? Like, what sort of incentives might need to be built in to ensure a smoother customer journey, and but still keep kind of that ubiquity that a QR code has from a UI perspective? So like to keep it sleek, but not to like annoy the hell out of people.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if you were talking to. So I think we see, of course, if there is nothing, if it's a static, tool, the click will not be there, and the scan will not be there. From the use case we have, where we see the better scan rate is where you add some utility. So that's where the customer will be more likely to to scan and to use it. If we look at the different maisons we have, one is with the Remova suitcase, where you scan your suitcase, and with your DPP is also attached a lifetime warranty. Obviously, there is some incentive for the customer to scan, but it has to be a live DPP. This DPP is not a one event and that's it, and there is nothing added. There is a life with the product, so you can add different things. You can have also all your repair, your maintenance, or any new storytelling. There need to be interaction. It's how you interact with customer. You can give them some special right, access to some pre-launch of product, but interact. It's if you keep it to compliance, it will be a one-click and that's it, and maybe no one will scan and click. If you make it interesting for the customer, there is something in it for them. From what we've seen, it works.
Great.
I don't think we'll get QR code fatigue with this, because the QR code is where the proof of the pudding is, right? It doesn't mean that the information is not also displayed in this beef is local, and you can see all the full evidence here. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing, it also depends on what type of product it is. So I don't buy a luxury handbag every day. I haven't bought a single one in my life, to be honest, only once for my wife. But that's a one QR code where I want to know it's authentic or not going forward, right? So I think there's other ways around it. Again, thinking of the end user, who actually, it's about trust. How do you make sure that they trust it? If I see this beef is from XY, is from this farm here, and I then scan it and it's not, then there's an issue. But do I really need to scan it to actually know that that's the case? So there's different ways around how you can make it a pleasant experience for the user. Yes.
Okay.
But perhaps along this line, there is a more recent regulation, which is about simplification, what we call the omnibus, and also the strategy for the single market strategy, which is promoting a digital product passport for future regulation. And hence, in a way, it is simplification, because we want to build on the work done for DPP to enable to address other regulation and to avoid to have to create another animal or another type of devices. At the same time, it opens the door to let's say, a different perspective in order to update the data, to have a live DPP or the equivalent, or to use different data carriers that can meet the different needs. So it provides a lot of perspective from what exists, what we start to implement with the DPP. And here, if I come back to the blockchain interest for this conference, it's clear, as we heard from the previous panel and what was also addressed by my colleagues panelists, there is a fantastic opportunity in order to manage in a more agile way the cybersecurity aspect, the agility and the dynamic data aspect, the privacy aspect. So we see here a lot of perspective. So just to for people to have in mind that the DPP is not something static which works for a traditional product, but it can lead to a much more sophisticated implementation that we hope will remain quite simple in the sense that we can build on standard and solutions that will continue to apply, but which are agile enough in order to evolve for different purposes. But again, it was stressed by you, but what really matters is that the one who needs to implement the DPP find great opportunities to offer better services or to be able to do their business more efficiently.
Great. We have a little bit of time left. I just want to open it up to some questions from the audience. I have them here, and this one's actually for you, Az. Do you have any reference implementation at BSV for DPPs?
It sounds like a trick question. Yes, we do. So what we've done over the last 2 years is not build out only the node software, but also the libraries and SDKs on top to make it easier for anyone to build. We just finished that and launched it in June. And rather than us bottom up, coming up with how the technology needs to evolve, we're now working together with businesses to involve this. And one of the use cases is with DPP. So there's demos and use cases available that anyone can use. The beauty of it, because it's open source, we were working with, there was a product in Argentina around healthcare prescriptions on chain. It's not necessarily DPP, but at the end of the day, it's something that has an identity and has certain metadata to battle fraud. So essentially, you go with the healthcare prescription, you go to one pharmacy, to the next, to the other. So this is the cost and this is the health issue, right? So now you have them on chain. That was built. That's now open source for anyone to then build on top of. And when we did a summer school at the University of Zurich, one of the students actually took that same reference implementation. He's from Peru, and 7 people died of saline contamination through medicine, through contaminated medicine. Within 3 days, he essentially built a healthcare traceability solution. So this is all readily available for anyone to take over and build the next thing on top of, and we'll be more than happy to support with that, so yes.
Fantastic, and maybe we have just a little bit of time. Maybe last final thoughts from each of you. Danika, if we could start with you.
Yeah, I think from a business or industry perspective, it's DPP seems to be a compliance exercise, but it's really also change management for the companies. It's not just a tech solution. It's not just a compliance solution. It's bringing everyone from the supply chain, from your retail, together. You also have a lot of work to do to get all your data, and that's what we see with all the maisons we work with. How do you get your data readiness? How do you get also your supply chain, your suppliers ready with verifiable and digitized data? So it's a much broader instrument. It's not just compliance, and I would certainly not limit that. It's an opportunity for any company to enhance the experience of the customer engagement, and on top of that, bringing transparency and trust.
So it's really more than just the DPP as a silo. This requires a holistic kind of uplift within the organization to prepare for it. Az?
I'm just going to take the opportunity to answer the question with a big yes. It's a massive game changer. And you see it already in how this event is structured, right? So historically, blockchain was always associated with fintech and digital assets. Now we have a full day that is essentially almost dedicated to non-financial use cases. We have now, this is the third topic on DPPs. It's a massive game changer, and the blockchain industry is ready. Now we need to make sure that the business understands the true value of using this in their daily operations, be it for the user or for the regulator, from a regulatory perspective. It's a massive game changer, and I'm super excited about what's coming ahead in the next couple of years. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Pierre, last thoughts from the Commission?
Yeah, first I will make echo to the fact that it is something which can be a massive game changer. Then, if I report previously about the local aspect of the regulation, but it's a local aspect which represents the largest market of the world. I mean, the European market is the largest one of the world, so any product which is imported is impacted by it, so it's not something which is small things. Then, I would say it is subject to an important effort of coordination between different players and different action. So I don't advise, let's say, solution providers through blockchain to come with their ideal solution that plug for everything. And I invite all of you who want to be active in this field to connect to existing communities. We have one emblematic project which is called CIRPAS, which is now piloting in 4 different areas, which is textile, ties, construction material, and electronic products. And if you cannot, because they are quite busy for this implementation, that will give first feedback about how feasible and what are the lessons learned to build such a solution. But there are another initiative which is related to that, which is called Circular Data, where it's let's say a platform or where you can interact with the different players, not only from the blockchain field, but from the other areas. And that's a bit my lesson is don't expect to come with a magic solution. Interact with the different actors, with the standards which have been already established, the different communities, and then focus and explain what is the added value for the different players, the enterprise manufacturer, but also the user, the consumer, and the public authorities about where blockchain provides more than what can be delivered by other solutions.
I think that we've all at some point in our journey in this industry heard that blockchain may be a solution in search of a problem, but I really think with the growth of blockchain and non-financial use cases, we see that the tech really has arrived, it's mature, it's being used by institutions, by brands, by Web3 companies to service a whole different coterie of clients and of use cases. So, thank you for joining us on this journey today, and thank you to our panelists for their insights. And that's all for us.